The hell? Okay, my sounds aren't working.
Well, we're live, so take us away, Jim.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Live. Our sound effects aren't working today. There will not be an applause. Sorry. Blame Google, not us. There we go. That'll work. It is rather appropriate for this video, considering this is going to be rather short and not nearly as in-depth as the previous videos. But welcome to Around the Pound, folks. I am, of course, James Phoenix, your host for the month of Around the Pounds here. Joining me once again are from the Mole, Chris the Mole.
Hello.
And from the Shadows Mall, Marcus Shadow.
Yellow.
And once again, we're talking about Kingdom Keepers, the book series by Ridley Pearson based on the Disney parks and assorted Disney mythology, and featuring 5 up to 7 teenagers of attitude who become holographic versions of themselves to fight off Disney villains. Today we're going to be talking about Book 6, Shell Game, and Book 7, Dark Passage.
Do we have the covers?
We do. I will bring them up here. Let me do that real quick. I forgot to open Minicam. Live feel. Sorry.
Man, that's kind of weird that the sounds don't work. I mean, it loaded for me. The effects thing loaded for me. Just none of them work.
How bizarre.
Indeed.
To which I have to say, boom! Because when they stop working for me, you're like, you're the only person they've stopped working on. Boom!
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 Shakalaka. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to start off with Kingdom Keepers Book 5, Shell Game, right there.
Woo!
Now, it should be noted here, to start off, that Shell Game and Dark Passage are basically 2 halves of the same book. I believe originally there was only going to be 1 book taking place in regard to the cruise line, but so much was going on and it got so in-depth that he ended up splitting it into 2 books. My opinion, that probably wasn't necessary. He probably could have got away with it in 1, but it did lead to a badass cliffhanger. So, probably
That's
not.
convenient.
I know.
That's convenient. The 2 books that you don't have the information for, suddenly the 2 books that happen to bleed together so well, you can talk about it like 1 book. Weird.
It literally is a coincidence on that, because they both take place on the cruise line. It's the journey from Florida to California over the course of the cruise line, and it does end abruptly with a cliffhanger in the middle. So it has been stated outright that it was originally 1 book split into 2. That was actually stated.
Fair enough, I can imagine that.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Anyway, if you haven't been keeping track of the series so far, seen the previous videos, where the hell have you been? Go watch the previous videos. But just in case you don't have time for that right now, long story short, I already summarized basically so far. The Kingdom Keepers have fought off Overtakers at each turn. They've gone through several parks, including the parks in Florida, Walt Disney World, MGM Studios down there. What is it? I forgot the name of the studio. The Disney Studio. That's Disney Hollywood Studios. There we go. We got that one. We've got they've gone to the Animal Kingdom, Epcot, all over the place. We're now on the Disney Magic cruise ship, where the DHI software has just been installed for the DHIs to work aboard the cruises. Kind of a new thing. So, when we pick up in Book 5 here, the Keepers are trying to defend what's referred to as the engineering base. It was established at the end of the last book. Basically, it's the base of operations from which all the parks in Florida, the Disney World collectively Walt Disney World parks, are controlled from. The engineering base controls all of the pretty much everything, the computers, the power systems, the rides, the attractions, all that good stuff. Everything is controlled from the base. And also the DHI server. So naturally, the Overtakers want to get in there. At the end of the last book, the DHIs were up to what was known as DHI 2.0, as opposed to the 1.0 they were before. And these DHIs are far more stable and do not have the previously established weakness of basically becoming solid when you are scared or otherwise have strong emotions. So I will just note for the record here that this is what do I refer to this? This is this is one of those kryptonite situations where the Keeper's real weakness was only the fact that there are issues of trying to stay full hologram to do stuff. And as you'll see leading up to here, we wrote this out into 2.0, which removed a lot of that weakness. And yeah, let's just say that there's going to be some backtracking later.
And also, I have to say that is really convenient for the writer.
What?
The one time they're actually confined to a ship which is smaller than any of the parks and stuff like that. Therefore, more people would notice the holograms becoming solid or not. Suddenly, he writes it out that they can't do this. So they don't have to learn to grow as characters and become three-dimensional people by overcoming their fears and stuff. Nah, it's cool. You can be afraid. It just won't affect it now. That's lazy.
Like I said, they haven't fully tested 2.0 yet at this point, so they don't know exactly how it's going to work. This is supposedly how it's going to work, and it's still being worked on. So anyway, the 2.0 is installed here, and they're working on this. Basically, there's been regular Overtaker attacks on the engineering base, and the Keepers have been working in shifts each night to guard the engineering base between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m., which is when the attacks occur. And after that, the Overtakers tend to shortly after 4 a.m. is generally when sunrise starts to appear just a little bit, and the Overtakers won't attack even a glimpse after sunrise, apparently, or at least these big attacks won't occur. So after 4 p.m., the base is clear, so they don't have to defend it anymore. So Finn meets up with Wayne. He gives him a report about what's going on. They get attacked by Honest John and Gideon from Pinocchio. A couple new Overtakers.
Why did they not attack during day?
Because the Overtakers would be caught and seen by everybody, because the park is open. I mean, not that early. No, not that early. No, but employees start coming in at like 5 in the morning. So.
Yeah, but it didn't stop them hijacking an actual parade and stuff.
They were hiding within the thing. They were supposed to be the characters. It was concealed. Even most of the people that saw this to this day don't realize that the shit that happened in the kingdom was real. They believe that it was all stage stuff by Disney. So that's kind of
they believe it was all stage stuff. But to be fair, it didn't mean it didn't happen.
No,
they literally fought the holograms or whatever it was during the parade. It's like, well, just keep attacking. Oh, you can't go. No, it's a sunlight. I'm now a vampire.
Well, no, it was only Maleficent that was out during that one fight they ended up having, and she wasn't intending to do that. They kind of forced her into it.
Yeah, it just seemed a little silly, because it's like, well, they've done it in the past, why don't they just keep attacking until the absolute moment when they can't do it anymore?
It's called strategy. That would be a complete waste of their forces. But anyway.
It also sounds like this engineering bay thing isn't actually part of where, like where the public would be able to go, or where even like the staff who would be, you know, the people in the costumes would go. So it would look really out of place if all of a sudden like fucking Jafar started walking into this engineering base.
Well, that's another part of it, is the fact that the base it's well concealed. Everything is well concealed within the Walt Disney World confines. But yeah, it's not exactly in a overtly public location that I can tell. I think it's somewhere. Actually, it might be, actually, now that I'm thinking about this. It's in the park somewhere, but it's hidden. Everything in Disney World is well hidden. So it's got Wayne always said the books, the best way to hide something is to put it in plain sight.
Yeah, but even if it's in plain sight, going inside it would still look a little suspicious, because it sounds to me like it wouldn't be someplace that someone someone in a Jafar costume or someone in a fucking Maleficent costume would be walking into.
Right, exactly. Which is why they don't really attacks with like minions and things that like the aforementioned brooms show up there with the acid goo in their buckets and stuff like that. Things like little minions attacks, but nothing. The Overtakers have been launching attacks now and again, but it's not like the major Overtakers attacking. It's the minion Overtakers attacking.
Yeah, which would be why they would go at night instead of during the day, because at night it'd be minimal people there, like just a couple of security, whatever, as opposed to
exactly
people that actually run the place.
Exactly.
And the last thing the Overtakers want, from what I gather, is for people to realize that they're real.
Yeah, but they also have the thing of like using Cruella to use a normal human-looking body to use phone calls and stuff. They could just use with someone like that, or they've taken people from Pirates of the Caribbean. why not take someone like that from like one of the, like, I don't know, Barbosa, and just put him in a normal clothes?
Maybe, but like I said, it's about trying to, because they know it's highly secure, and the characters are guarding it because they don't want them to break in and get control of this stuff. And it's a fight. Just let's move on. But anyway, so there's these regular attacks, and Wayne basically, we established at the end of the last book that the Overtakers stole an important journal from decades ago. It originally belonged to some of the original Imagineers that worked with Walt Disney in the early 50s, and then it had general early script ideas for the movies Pinocchio and Fantasia. They theorized that the Pinocchio thing, being that Pinocchio was an artificial person who became a real person, that the Overtakers might have analogized that to the Keepers and might be thinking they could find something in the early notes that might help them stop the Keepers. And the Fantasia, of course, they, as mentioned, they have managed to free Chernabog, but he is trapped in what's called torpor, sort of a hibernative sleep type thing where he's semi-conscious but doesn't have his full power. And so the idea is they want to break him out of torpor so that they can, which they find out over the course of this book, that's what he's in, because they want to get his full power back so he can lead them and rule and take over and everything. And being that Chernabog only appears in Fantasia, the early notes would relate to that and would help them figure out what it is. And they explain a lot about what Chernabog is. He's half Minotaur, which in and of itself is, of course, a half man, half bull. Was known to eat people and generally didn't have a whole, it's just a standard mythological being. And the other half of him is actually a Mayan bat god, which also known to eat people and also has certain, they go to the mythology about that.
Wasn't he supposed to be the devil?
Yes, he's referred to as being generally the devil, but his appearance and what he is representing the devil was inspired by those two sources.
I assume the author got that directly from, from the Disney company and
pretty
stuff.
much, yeah.
I would imagine that would have been part of his research.
I'll assume maybe. I don't entirely know. Only because when I've seen Disney people talk about that before now, they said he was meant to be the devil, and they took inspiration from all of the paintings and stuff that people have drawn of the devil over the years.
Which is fair enough, but I think, strictly speaking, in terms of his physical appearance, the primary aspect, even looking at him, you can see the primary aspects are the Minotaur, and the other part of it is supposed to be representing the Mayan bat god, because I think that's where the name Chernabog actually comes from, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway. So they explain that they're trying to figure out how to bring him out of torpor and try to understand what's going on and how they're going to do this. So this is like I said, they find out more about the torpor part later, but they theorize that they're trying to figure out what's going on with Chernabog with the novel. I mean, they figure they're trying to bring his power back. It's just they don't get the details till later. So with all this going on, it's of course announced that the Disney Magic will be launching and the DHIs will be installed on the cruise ship for the first time. And so in order to celebrate this, the actual Kingdom Keepers, their physical selves, have been invited to go on the inaugural cruise, along with the to celebrate their holographic counterparts being installed on the ship. So that is apparently the plan. However, the Overtakers have expanded their forces slightly. Obviously, I mentioned certain Overtakers, like I mentioned, Honest John and Gideon there from Pinocchio have appeared.
Jim, doesn't that go against the rules the author set forth in the first 4 books?
Those are only the rules that Disney set forth, not the author. Those are the rules that the Disney people had said we don't want them at the same time, but they have a schedule worked. It's explained in the book. They have a schedule worked out where they want the real keepers there to help celebrate the fact that the holographic tour guides are on there, but they're strictly the keepers themselves are brought on for specific events that they're going to appear at in person, but for pretty much the duration of the cruise, they're confined in their quarters.
That kind of sucks.
It does kind of suck, yeah. It's really stupid. But the idea is they're going to be there for some events, do signings, do some of this stuff. But at any specific event, for the duration of any specific events that the holograms are appearing at, they were confined to quarters. Like if the holograms are at a dinner, they can't go, so on and so forth.
Why the fuck would they agree to something like that? I mean, aside from the Kingdom Keeper side of this stuff, the fact that they kind of have to be there if they want to be able to use the holograms to stop the Overtakers, because I doubt they could hologram in from their bedroom onto a cruise ship. But
Technically speaking, as long as the projectors are there, they're still connected to a Disney server back in the main park, so yes, they can.
so then why would they say yes? It sounds really fucking boring and stupid. And they're kids. They wouldn't. They'd say fuck you to being confined to quarters.
Yes, but you forget one thing, is that these are the Kingdom Keepers. They are the Disney Host Interactive. Well, sorry, my phone. They are the Disney Host Interactive. They were scanned and put into this, and they signed a shit ton of contracts that said, you're going to do everything we tell you to do, or we're going to take away your gold pass and the money we're paying for your college with.
So this book's supposed to make us care about Disney?
Exactly. Anyway. Yeah, but the idea is that it's a number, obviously they go as keepers, but it's also supposed to be a fun experience. You know, you get to go on a Disney cruise ship, every day you get to do that. And because as the Kingdom Keepers, they're contractually obligated to do certain promotional events and things regarding to the project that they signed up for. So this is one of the events that they have to go to.
That doesn't sound like a fun thing of being confined to your room.
Yeah. It's like you're saying, yeah, if it was just a Disney cruise and you're on it, yeah, that'd be fun. But the fact of the matter is, they can't experience any of it because they're going to be confined to quarters. That's fucking stupid.
That's basically slave labor.
They're only confined for any time the holograms are being used on the ship, which is not all the time. It's only once in a while they bring the holograms out for a certain event, in which case they have to be confined during that event. Usually events that are occurring later in the evening.
Although I guess technically speaking, during those events, if they really wanted to do stuff, they could just go to sleep.
Theoretically. But the problem is they got to be careful, because if the holograms are being used at some event, they can't just suddenly become the holograms at the event, or they're not necessarily going to know the scripts that are programmed into the holograms, and it's going to be fairly obvious what they did.
True.
So they have to wait for the holograms to not be being used in order to become their DHI selves.
I would make the case of why would it be fairly obvious, considering the reason the holograms and shit came about as being bigger and the Kingdom Keeper thing became bigger is they did something completely not in a script of Fight Molestin. Therefore, people are like, whoa, this is so real because of the fact they're not acting like a script and stuff. So wouldn't that be actually truer to the characters?
To some extent, yeah. The audience would love it, and the audience on the ship, the people on the ship wouldn't care. The Disney crew members who know what's supposed to happen in this event would flip the fuck out. And it's less concerned about the public seeing what's going on, because they can make shit up and make the public believe just about anything. But the Disney people who work on the ship, like I said, the Disney cruise ship is run much like a Disney park. It's highly efficiently run. Everybody knows exactly who's supposed to be where, when, what they're supposed to be doing. There are characters on board the ship, people making them on board the ship. Again, they're only seen in one part of the ship at any given time. They're associated in certain places at certain times. It's all very rigidly structured. So the Disney people would know if the Keeper hologram suddenly went off script and off programming, and then trying to figure out what was going on.
I don't get that.
What?
From a logic standpoint, you said most of these occur later on in the evening and stuff like that, which is basically when it's starting to go dark, which is when those villains start to attack and stuff. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have told the Disney people that, oh, by the way, we've also programmed in like a random sequence, which means it may go off script a little bit, but it's all part of it, just so they believe it and see that perfectly fine, instead of knowing that they're going to become their holograms when it's dark to attack the enemies, and then limit them by not allowing them to actually do shit because they have to do a script.
Mm. Right, but again, you have to remember, not everybody that works for Disney is in on the whole we're fighting actual Disney villains thing.
And again, I didn't tell them they were going to fight the Disney villains. I said they could have told them that they put a random sequence in there and say, just to keep it a little fresh in case someone's been on this cruise. The people doing the holograms.
That's what I'm saying. The people doing the holograms aren't necessarily in on this whole thing. That's what I'm telling you.
You're missing the point. You're missing. I'm not saying tell them the secret. I'm tell them that you've programmed these holograms and stuff like that with a random sequence generator to make it a little fresh.
You're missing what? Yeah, but you're missing what I'm saying. I'm saying the people who run the holograms can't tell the ship people that because the hologram people don't know. Like I said, Wayne Kresge, their mentor, and a few select people that work for him are aware. All they know is that, okay, we made these holograms, and it's going to be programmed to talk and act and do stuff like these kids. That's all they know. Only when Wayne Kresge and a few select Imagineers, a few select people that work for him that are hidden within the company, are aware that the kids actually become their holograms.
And
so the people working in the hologram studio, most of them would not know to do that, because most of them, especially with Wayne Kresge now in hiding after he got kidnapped and not wanting to get fucking kidnapped again, would not be able to set it that way. Especially because if you put that sort of thing in there and they do start going off script, that's going to send red flags right over to the Overtakers.
except for I was saying, if you did that, where they would send it down the line of, oh, it's a random sequencing just to keep it a little fresh in case people go on our cruise multiple times because we have reoccurring guests, it's to make it a little fresher. No one needs to know, and it would have come from the higher ups and stuff there. Because, I'm sorry, you can't tell me that the guy who left clues all the way around the park perfectly to where he was going to be kept or where the items were that they needed and planned all this other shit, and the one you said, oh yeah, he's always using the new Disney technology in new and exciting ways, the last book, he's always coming up with new ways of doing that, didn't put something in place to make sure that his heroes could be heroes at night and not have to say, oh, we can't save the day. Yeah, my hologram's eating lunch.
Like I said, it's not like it's that late at night. It's mostly for like dinner events that are occurring around 8, 9 p.m. They'll
When
be
it's dark.
Yeah, but just barely. Remember, they're down in the southern hemisphere, swailing around near the equator. There's a lot more sunlight hours down there than there are up here. But
there is a lot more like that down there, but as you also know, when you've watched stuff like WrestleMania in Florida, it's still got dark there during certain times of the year, and whenever they've done events or open top arenas, it's gotten dark at certain times of the year. So it makes sense that maybe, they'd have something like this in place instead of it being really plot convenience. That's all I was saying.
Anyway. So like I was saying, several threats are on board the ship as they find out as they find out over the course of this cruise. They find out the variety of threats that have made themselves known and present on this ship. Some of which we only see in a passing here and there and don't do much. Some of which are, of course, more active. I will tell you, I did confirm that because a lot of the characters boarded the ship. We saw characters boarding the ship, which there's questions among the keepers as to whether the characters are supposed to be boarding ship in costume or whether these are all the Overtakers. They assume at least some of them are probably Overtakers. They don't really know. But I will tell you, one of the characters boarding the ship was Emperor Zurg, but unfortunately we don't see him after that.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, Mol.
That's fine. Like
Anyway.
I said, it's already lost my interest.
Fair enough.
It's really horribly written.
Anyway. I said it sounds better in the book. But anyway.
That's your excuse for everything.
I'm sorry, I'm not the author, and I'm summarizing this half from memory, and in previous videos, half from what I could find in plot summaries on the internet, which are not all that inclusive.
I know, but I know it's not inclusive and stuff, and that makes sense. That does make sense. All I would saying ish, which Jeff also touched upon then, is
Marcus.
Marcus. Anytime we come up with any faults, you can't say, well, it's better in the book. There is no faults. That just makes this whole review sound blind fanboyish.
No, I didn't say there was no
It does. If you go back and listen to all the reviews, it does sound kind of blind fanboyish, because whenever we find faults, mostly Mole finds faults, but I find some too, where we try to say, well, it would make more logical sense doing this way or that way, you always seem to try to come up with an excuse for it and try to shrug it off, and it's like, well, really, that doesn't make any sense.
It's not excuses. I just tried to help better explain why it makes more sense in the book. I'm not saying it makes complete sense or that it's good. I'm just saying it makes a little more sense in the book than it sounds like it does. When I say it sounds like it's really blatantly, oh my god, this is bad. I'm just saying in the book, yeah, it's bad and it's a problem, but it's not as starkly sticking out obvious. Was only my point.
Which I would say, if you'd said it that way, that would have been cool. But every time it's just, well, it's better in the book. It's like, oh okay.
Fair enough. Yeah, it is better. It's not good, but it's better. Like I was saying, so assorted threats that start showing up on the boat. They establish a couple of things while they're on the boat. Number one, They figure out that Maleficent is probably on the boat somewhere. They figure that much out. They don't know where, but they figure she's probably there. Number two, they figure out that a group of kids who were established in the near the end of the last book, called the basically they're called the Overtaker kids, the OTKs. Is pretty much what they refer to them as. Basically, Maleficent used some mind control shit to hypnotize a bunch of other kids to work for her. Basically, evil rangers, for lack of a better term. Led by Greg Luoski, aka Lousy Luoski, the bully from Finn's school. And we find out that the three of them are on the ship. It's three of them. Him, Sally, and another guy whose name I can't remember, but he doesn't do anything. He's not important. He's just kind of there to be a stooge. And we find out that they are also on the ship, and they're identified by their green eyes. At first, their eyes are just green because they were wearing green contacts, because they find out that these Overtaker kids were basically brought into this because they saw this YouTube video that basically talked about, the king is run by the same people for 50 years. It's overly cheery and nice. Wouldn't you like it to be a little darker, a little bit cooler? We can help help us do that. We're trying to make the parks a little better, a little more modern, more hip, more cool, more darker. You can help us with that. And initially, it's just a bunch of people who are working for them, and they're wearing green contacts to represent who they are. But inevitably, Maleficent just does use full-on magic on there, and their eyes do turn green.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So and like I said, you might remember the Overtakers previously did steal a DHI server that they had in the Animal Kingdom, which they managed to get shut down. But somehow the Overtakers have gotten back into the DHI server, and they've managed to install their three Overtaker kids as DHIs as well.
I'm also surprised they didn't, unless they do in the next book or in between it or something. I'm surprised when the kids are all concentrating on this ship and have left all their holograms, projectors, and shit at the theme park, with the Overtakers don't just use that, like corrupt it, damage it, or do something.
You would think. It is. Yeah, that's one of the big problems that they were trying to figure out how they were going to go on the ship and still defend the engineering base. But based on what they learned from the Overtakers have pretty much put their major players and their focus into this cruise ship and are going with that, as opposed to the engineering base, which, yes, is important, but not as important as their ultimate goal for this trip, which we'll get to.
Well,
So
I agreed with their ultimate trip. I was just saying, there's a lot more villains than there is kids. Couldn't they have split them up and still done evil shit around the park, like sabotage some of the projectors or attack the base or whatever?
Yeah, you would think. It should also be mentioned before they go on this cruise that Finn did meet with King Triton, as I mentioned in the last video. He met with King Triton, and King Triton agreed that he would help protect them while they were in his domain on the water, and that Finn should yell a specific code into the water, and that he or someone representing some of his people would come up, or somebody, basically something from the sea would help him from his kingdom. And that comes into play a few times. I believe the code is Starfish Lies, Starfish Cries, if memory serves. So they did previously establish that, and Ursula was inadvertently summoned into the wave pool that they were meeting in at one point, and she kind of acts creepy Ursula-like and talks some evil shit, and then tries to murder Finn and Amanda with a big tidal wave, but Triton manages to get them away before they get killed. So, just thought I'd mention that event happened. The other event that happened that I will mention this here as well is that Luoski and the Overtaker kids were attacking before they got on the ship. Specifically, Greg Luoski and Sally, the female of the Overtaker kids, the two of them, actually, while Finn was asleep in the park during that whole exchange I just mentioned, specifically the earlier exchange in which he was meeting with Wayne, and they were talking about the files that got stolen and they got attacked by the Pinocchio characters. Luoski and Sally actually broke into Finn's house, and in order to keep him asleep, and basically lock him in a sleeping beauty syndrome so the keepers would be able to lead her, they broke in, and while he was half asleep, they tried to pour this pitcher of booze and sleeping pills down his throat, which was kind of dark and out of nowhere. But he wakes up at a time that it doesn't work, and his mother breaks in and sees what's going on. And Luoski gets away, but they manage to retain the girl, Sally. And they basically, and like I said, at this point, they're not under full magic spells. They're just kind of doing this because they think it was a cool thing to do or whatever, and they're being threatened by Maleficent, basically. And they basically tell Sally, look, unless you want us to, report this little event to your parents and the police and have you thrown in juvie, you're going to work for us as our spy in the Overtaker kids now. Which is cool. So they basically threaten her, and they turn her into their double agent spy. Just to provide them information if she gets anything they need to know, which does come into play on the boat. She once in a while, on a couple of occasions pops in and says, hey, they're doing this. You might want to go here and get away or whatever, So those events happened. So the Disney Dream is going, for the record, it's sailing from Cape Canaveral, Florida to Los Angeles, sailing down through the Panama Canal and coming up the other side of the country, if you're familiar with the general map of the Western Hemisphere. And they end up on and as the cruise ship is going, they pass a variety of exotic locales along the way. These include Costa Rica, Mexico, Aruba, all kinds of lovely places like that down there where things occur. And I will get to that in a moment. To finish where I was, other overtakers and things other people that are seen on the ship. Number one, Jack Sparrow and the pirates show up, and during this particular event that the in-person overtakers were at. And they show up and start like attacking people, and it kind of goes a little nuts. And they barely manage to get away, but just barely. It's not really stated clear as to whether Jack Sparrow is actually working for the Overtakers or whether he's under a spell. It's not really made clear. Probably kept ambiguous because they didn't want to, because he's a hero. They didn't want to totally, villainize him. So we're not really sure what happened there, but that attack occurred. During the sail away show, they called it. Also, a side plot line going on here is that Amanda and Jessica, knowing that the Keepers might need help, contacted a friend of theirs named Maddie. As was previously established, Amanda and Jessica are fairlies, as in they are fairly human, and they have special powers. Amanda has telekinesis, Jess can see the future in her dreams, but can't really understand it. Just kind of drawing the things that she sees, the images that she sees that have to be interpreted to understand what's actually coming and what it's seeing. Well, they came from a facility that they were basically in, which is basically a facility where these people with powers were kind of kept locked up and watched and experimented on, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of not a good place. And they managed to escape. And they contact their friend Maddie, who was also there, and their friend Maddie, who is a girl, also breaks out and agrees to come help them. And she turns up on the ship as well, helping them out. She has powers of empathy that are very ill-defined. But she shows up on the ship as well in an attempt to help them out. Also randomly appearing on the ship is Finn's former best friend, Dillard Cole, who has been Finn's best friend for years, but ever since Finn started hanging out with the Kingdom Keepers, Dillard kind of got left to the side. So Dillard was basically, they see him once in a while, he pops up, and Finn's like, wait, Dillard, how are you even here? But they don't really get to talk to him. But it's later established that Dillard was put there for the purpose of helping the Keepers as an extra trump card, if you will, to have another ally on the ship. Primarily to help fight off the DHI kids, as it were. So over the course of the first book, there's some events on the ship going on. I said these events are going on. The Overtakers interfere with things. The Keepers try to get through the boat to try to figure out where the basically they have to get to the DHI server that's on board the ship, so that Philby can manually control their ability to cross over, so that they can go when they want to go and work around the schedule of the holograms and whatnot. And also, if they could find the Overtakers DHI generator, which they're not sure is on the ship, but they assume it is, to try to stop the other ones. And as events proceed, they slowly start figuring out the plan that, Chernabog's incorporated, they figure the plan out. They also meet a character named Story Ming, S-T-O-R-E-Y, last name Ming, M-I-N-G. She's a young Asian lady. And she works for the cruise line, is established a little bit older than the Keepers. She's working on the cruise ship. And she shows up to help them periodically by getting them key cards to get into here or there, or distracting someone for this, or getting them that, or feeding them this information, or whatever it might be. She kind of serves as an ally within the crew of the ship. So, with all this going on, as the ship sails through, and we're kind of at the they end up finding the Overtakers wherever they were hiding at the bottom, somewhere in the underbelly of the ship. And they inevitably, as they run into some of the Overtakers, they get chased around by the hyenas from the Lion King who are on the ship, and they get attacked and injured. Specifically, Jess, who was on board, because Jess and Amanda appear on the ship as their DHIs. They're, of course, back in Florida, but they were DHI projected out to the ship. And they try to help as they can in their DHI forms, but the DHIs, unfortunately, Jess and Amanda are not in that advanced 2.0 version. Only the main 5 are, so they could still get hurt in their DHI form because they're still operating on the old server. And so Jess ends up getting bitten by one of the hyenas and gets her leg gets severely hurt. And so when they bring her back, they take her to they bring her back. They bring her the holograms, because like I said, the holograms are sort of solid. They can sort of people, and they take them back into Disney World, where they summon Megara from Hercules, who is established as a talented healer, which I think comes from the actual Greek mythology that the character was from. And they say that she's a healer, and she's able to help heal Jess's leg, and try to to work on that a little bit. It's also established that Rapunzel is a healer, which if you've seen her movie, you kind of know how that works. And she doesn't really appear here; she appears later on. But anyway, Megara helps heal Jess, so they have to go through. Ariel brings Megara to them to help heal them, and so that kind of threat happens. And the book, the first book, Shell Game, ends with a cliffhanger where they're being chased by the hyenas all over the deck of the ship. How nobody's noticing this, I don't know, but they're being chased around the deck of the ship by these giant ass hyenas, and inevitably Finn is running away and trying to. And Finn has a flashback to a thing he had a weird thing in the beginning of the book where he flashed to being in this library with Willa, and they saw the Overtakers doing something, Maleficent and the Queen and Cruella de Vil, and he remembers what he did as a series of events went by, and for some reason he flashes back to the series of events, and he remembers he jumped off a thing to get away, and so as he's running from the hyenas, he jumps right off the back of the cruise ship, and that's where the cliffhanger picks up.
And as science would say, he's quickly sucked into the motor at the back of the boat and dies.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's the direct back or if it's the side of the rear side of the boat. I'm not sure, but he jumps off the boat. But anyway, so that's where that book ends. Like I said, the next book, Dark Passage, is a continuation where we see the ship stopping on several locations across the tour. The first stop is in the jungles of Mexico, down in that general area, where they end up ziplining through the jungle at one point, and they start investigating when everybody gets off. The ship is parked, and everybody's off the ship at the location, and they're doing this, that, and they're going to be there for a period of time. And there's a fireworks show and Disney events going on, and people are on the beach partying and da 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 da.
You didn't change your picture.
Oh, thank you. I should change the picture. You are right. Let's do that. Computer mouse. Dark Passage. There we go. See, there it is. See, they're jumping off the boat. I may have jumped off the boat with him.
That looks even worse. That looks like they're jumping near the front of the boat. They'll be hit by it.
Maybe it was the front of the boat then.
But then again, the covers are normally out of context and just whatever pose would look cool.
Yeah, usually. So, they stop it, and they basically, the keepers realize that the Overtakers are planning something at the stops along the way, and they're not totally sure what, but they get off to investigate. Because they realize that Chernabog can't possibly be on the ship, because it's only so big, and he's kind of huge and hard to hide. And that they would have seen him being loaded onto the ship at the cargo or something on the way out. So they know that Chernabog can't be on the ship. So they must have some other plan to get Chernabog where they need him for what they're going to do. And when they at one of the stops in Mexico, they end up following some suspicious-looking cast members who are probably being mind-controlled through the jungle, and they start unraveling the plans, where they figure out that basically the Overtakers, when they're stopped at the beach in Mexico, there's a fireworks show, and they use the fireworks show as a cover for the landing of an aircraft that has a crate containing Chernabog, where they land the aircraft and they shove the Chernabog crate on board the ship while everybody is off the ship at the party, and the fireworks are going off so nobody can hear anything. So they sneak Chernabog onto the ship via some convoluted plot lines that go on. Da 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 da. There's a chase through the jungle. They find out bad stuff's going on. There's a cool scene on the beach where Jafar is seen there, even though Jafar was kind of only out for himself previously. Apparently, he decided to get with the program. Because previously Jafar had encountered them in the park, and basically he just said, "I understand you have this magic window technology. I would like to possess this technology so I can be powerful." Because Jafar only gives a shit about himself because he's Jafar. And they basically told him to screw off, and he tried to attack them in snake form, but Willa whipped out a flute and basically played a snake charmer tune, and Jafar kind of did a funny dance, and then they ran away. And then Jafar got really pissed off and tried to chase them, but he did not succeed. But anyway, in this one, this is actually cool. As we see Jafar in a meeting with one of the other new characters who has been spotted on the ship and around, and that's Tia Dalma, who you may remember as the voodoo witch doctor lady from Pirates of the Caribbean, who was not really a villain in the movie, but is apparently super evil now. Go figure. But Tia Dalma has been involved using her black magic, which is apparently magic of a different variety than the kind of thing that the Queen and Maleficent can do. So they recruited her for the sake of knowing a lot about this type of voodoo, ancient magic. Specifically because, if you might have noticed, these are the locations that the ship is going through is all stuff down in Central America, which happens to be where the Mayan Empire used to reside. And if you recall correctly, Chernabog is based heavily on a Mayan bat god. So they figure out what the plan is that basically they're going to sneak Chernabog to somewhere to bring him, and Tia Dalma is going to do some kind of ritual to bring him out of torpor as the Overtakers plan. And then they're going to continue on to Disney World, and they're going to conquer it. Through some big-ass catastrophic event, they're going to cause a Disneyland to take over the kingdom. Because Disneyland is the heart of the kingdom, it always has been. That was been established in the books. So that is one event where they sneak Chernabog on board the ship while the keepers are running around and trying to figure out how to stop it, and trailing behind as they're running through the woods, running away from Overtakers and this and that, and getting chased around by this, that, and the other thing, and a lot of events going on. So that happens in the jungles of Mexico. I believe it's Mexico that stop was in. And they also stop at that was Costa Rica. They snuck Chernabog on board in, and then when they stopped in Mexico, they were trying. Tia Dalma was seen there. They were trying to what was it they were trying to do there? Long story short, over the course of the stops, they sneaked Chernabog on board the ship. It was Costa Rica. They picked up Tia Dalma. Then when they got to Mexico, they picked up Chernabog. That's what it was. Okay, I remember now. Because Tia Dalma had a hut at the one location, and they ended up picking Tia Dalma up at that point in time, and that's when she boarded the ship. So they pick everybody up, and they're on their way, and they end up in Aruba. They end up in these caves in Aruba, where basically this big showdown. They end up in this big showdown. Basically the Overtakers take Chernabog into this dark cave where they're going to do this ritual. They're going to bring Chernabog out of torpor, and that would be the end if they succeeded in doing that. So, big rituals going on in the cave. The Kingdom Keepers go in to try to stop it, naturally. And basically it gets really overly violent. Again, kind of sort of out of nowhere, but it gets basically overly violent. There's this really dark moment where Tia Dalma is also adept at some voodoo mind control. She's got a little bit of that too, and she basically uses a voodoo spell. I think she actually has a voodoo doll that she uses for it, and she basically does this voodoo spell where she basically remember I mentioned Finn's friend Dillard Cole was on the ship and had been helping them and popping in now and again. Well, they all get off the ship and they all go to try to stop this. The keepers, Dillard goes with them. I don't think Amanda and Jess made an inform, but it was basically the main keepers went to try to fight them off. And they all end up getting jumped by Overtakers outside the cave. And using voodoo magic, Tia Dalma makes Finn murder Dillard Cole in, like, cold blood. It's like, wow, that came out of nowhere. Okay, then. It's like,
that was kind of out of nowhere.
That comes out of nowhere, and I think it's established that she made him think he was killing an Overtaker or something like that. But basically she makes him kill Dillard, and that kind of like breaks his spirit. That just pisses Finn right off, and that's basically where Finn he basically kind of loses it, and he goes basically he goes in just as Superman.
He
And
goes
he's like,
shitty and shouldn't exist.
no,
Oh, wait, that to begin with.
yeah. Well, basically, he gets pissed off. He's like, "No, I'm done with this. These Overtakers are going down." And they run into the cave and chase the Overtakers through the cave, and they all run in there, but they end up Finn ends up being the last one in there with the Overtakers, and they try to fight off Maleficent's. Maleficent starts throwing fireballs at him. They fight the fireballs off. Maleficent goes into her big ass dragon form, but they collapse the roof on her. So, well, first of all, there's this badass scene where they manage to dodge the fireballs from Maleficent, and they manage to get close to Finn manages to get close to her by dodging the fireballs or knocking them away, or he has some kind of thing where he's been able to deflect the fireballs. I don't remember what the plot device was there, but he was able to deflect the fireballs, and he manages to get close to Maleficent. And he actually grabs her by the throat and starts like choking her to death, like with his bare hands. Like, I am tired of you. You killed my best friend. You're hurting her. Stop it.
Which is stupid.
And basically, he ends up choking, and then she panics when she's being choked, and she goes into her dragon form and starts trying to breathe fire on them and attacking them and everything. And they end up collapsing. The entire cave ends up collapsing when Dragon Maleficent kind of goes nuts. The whole cave collapses, and Maleficent, the Evil Queen, and Chernabog are all buried alive inside the cave as the keepers just barely escape. Finn, having been severely injured in the fight with Maleficent, and being again brought in DHI form back to the park to be healed by Megara and Rapunzel.
Which I was saying, which is stupid. For one big reason.
Okay.
Marcus, do you remember when we were talking about some of the problems we had when he was doing books 1 and 2? And one of them was, why the fuck didn't Maleficent turn into a dragon? To which he said, well, I don't really think she has that ability in this book series.
I never said that. I said she had the ability later.
But how? She hasn't got a power up or anything, which means it must be a power up. It must be a power she's had all along. Thus, stupid.
Whatever.
That's the fanboy response.
No, I'm just saying I don't have a defense for it, so there's no point in my talking.
So you agree?
Yeah,
That it's kind of Deus Ex there.
Yeah, I said there might be. I feel like there might have been something in the book about it, but I can't remember what it is. So we'll just say it's a plot hole because I don't know.
Fair enough.
Oh, that whole thing goes down, and they collapse the cave on the Overtakers in there. Tia Dalma's in there too. They collapse the cave on all the Overtakers, and leave them there, believing them all to be dead and the threat to be over. And they basically go back to the cruise ship where Wayne has shown up straight to hell out of nowhere because Wayne, and he congratulates them on the victory, and they get back on the cruise ship to continue on their way to Disneyland, and that's about where the book ends.
Fair enough.
Indeed.
Yeah, like I said, the concept is still kind of cool. I like the concept, but yeah, there's just been so many plot holes and so many just Deus Exy stuff. Just he's making rules within his universe and then not sticking to them because plot needs this, so therefore my world I'm going to break in. It's just like it's not good. You can't do that and expect people to care about your world.
Like I said, I think it's less blatant that they're being. I mean, obviously there's a lot of plot holes and things being broken, but I think it's just less overt and less blatant in the books, and then at least a couple of the things are explained here. They were at least attempted to be explained away. I don't know if it succeeds, which is why I do it. What I think I should do at some point here, aside from this whole thing, is I think I should do another review of this series where I've actually reread the books and written notes as I go through to better explain this shit. But that'll be down the road somewhere if I even do that.
That could work.
Yeah.
I could see you doing that, or rereading the books and then reviewing them as you go along, so it's fresh in your mind.
Exactly. That was kind of my point. Is I was going to go through it as I went along, just kind of read the books as I went along and go from there. Exactly, and read two, review, read them, write little notes as I go, bullet notes as I go through, review the two, and go from there. That way, they're more fresh in my mind. Like right now, I finished the new one actually, Kingdom Keeper's novel, The Return, book one, Disneyland's just today, and that one's fresh in my mind, and I remember everything in that one because I just read it, so I can easily review that right now. I obviously can't because we haven't done the last one in the main series yet, but that'll be coming sometime down the line.
I'm gonna be honest, based on what you've told me about it so far, just the little snippets of as you were reading it, we were talking about it. It sounds kind of stupid.
And I said, won't that be next week?
Well, it was one of you. It was pointed out to me by one of you. I don't remember which one. That
No, I meant when you said we haven't done the last one in the series, but that's coming later on down the road. I was saying, won't that be next week?
No. The last one in the series is the last one in the series is next week. I meant The Return is coming later on down the road.
Ah,
my apologies. But yeah, so that's where we're at. So the whole cruise ship is kind of one big event going on. There's a lot of near death, a lot of darkness. The other thing there's a lot of that I've been skipping over a lot of is a lot of the pushing of the relationships among the keepers. Finn, the Finn and Amanda had this sort of relationship that gets strained. Maybeck and Charlene, Willa and Philby. There's this other under storyline in these last couple of books where Finn and Philby are having this sort of almost conflict over which of them should be the leader of the keepers, because Philby is the one who's the smart one who controls the server to send them in and back out when he has control of them and everything else. And there's some things where Wayne is telling Philby some stuff and not Finn, and Finn gets jealous and thinking that Wayne's going to make Philby the leader of the keepers, and there's this whole plot line of Finn's inner stress about whether he's a good leader and whether Philby's going to become the leader or not, and realizing they have to be allies and so on and so forth.
Which I would have to say, why the hell wouldn't you mention that? That's more of the actual story. It's more interested in, oh yeah, suddenly flash to now he was in a library. And if you're telling us for the first time, if you told us about the characters' relationships and stuff, we might care more about the story, because that is the story. The fact they're on a cruise ship and the fact it's accurate to the part, I don't give a shit. I want to know about the actual story.
Fair enough.
At least that's my response to that, because it's like if I see a film, for example, and it's like, okay, it's set in London. Oh yeah, it's so accurate to London. I don't care. I want to see what the actual story is.
Fair enough. Yeah, like I said, there is a lot of that in there. It's number one, a lot of it is beat you over the head, specifically the relationship crap that he will not stop harping on. It's like what's one of the things I will give you I don't like about this book is there's like Twilight levels of teen angst in this book. In this series, rather.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it's made for the kid tween audience.
Yeah. So there's a lot of Finn and Amanda like each other, but Amanda has secrets, and can they be together? And Maybeck and Charlene like each other, but they're both stubborn and pig-headed because Charlene is the strong, independent, athletic woman, and Maybeck is the ladies' man who doesn't want to admit that he's not cool and whatever. And then, like I said, there's the whole Philby and Willow, where Philby and Willow like each other a lot, but Willow, while she's smart, doesn't want to just be grouped in with Philby as the brainy girl that works, she doesn't want to just be grouped in as the Trini that translates Billy's technobabble, if you will. She wants to be her own person, for her own skills and whatnot. And Philby's, the brains of the operation, but wants to, doesn't just want to be, I'm the computer guy and whatnot, and, Finn's the leader and you're all this and that, and I'm just a computer nerd, and, the interpersonal, like I said, I'll go back and I'll do a better review of this one, because I realized in trying to cover this review without listening that these reviews have been shit. So for anybody who's still listening, I apologize for how shit this entire series of reviews and this Around the Pound this month has been. I will do a much better retrospective on this series. I vow it.
And can I just say for the people listening, so when you were saying you weren't being blindly fanboyish, what you're saying is you're going to wait and later on go back and do a review about the people who are pointing out negativity within the story?
Cool. No. I'm gonna better address the what actually happened in the books and a lot of the more character development, but still blatantly point out a lot of the issues that I have with a lot of the plot holes that are in this, like whether the Overtakers can and can't be seen and can that be controlled and what the fuck, and things like, again, like I said, the big one that's coming up is we're gonna upgrade to 2.0, but oh shit, Kingdom Keepers need to be weak, so no, the measures locked 2.0, I backgraded them to 1.6, so they're vulnerable again. It's like, yeah, wow, that's not obviously undoing what you did because you fucked up.
It might be, or there might have been a problem in 2.0.
Well, I believe the thing they were saying about something about, I think they did work something in about with the 2.0 was they were a lot more solid, but they were. I think the 2.0 was what kept getting hacked by the Overtakers, whereas somehow the 1.6 was not as something or as accessible. I don't know. There's something about it's safer to use 1.6 than it is to use the 2.0. Was basically the gist of it.
Yeah, it's basically a case of 2.0. It seemed good. It got rid of all the weaknesses or whatever, but not everyone knows about that. That's fair enough. It seems pretty cool. However, it has some issues, like the holograms kept showing up wet, when if they're proper holograms, jumping into water would shatter the light and they'd die instantly.
We gotta remember, these are special Disney holograms where, if they're experiencing fear or anything, they become solid, and therefore they are, for all intents and purposes, people.
But you
Like
said
that-
2.0 removed that weakness.
Yes, 2.0 did remove that weakness. Yes, you are
And they
absolutely right.
jumped off a boat into water.
True, but and on the boat, I think on the boat they actually I think now I remember that. Okay, now you're pointing that to me. Now I remember the story. Is the Overtakers managed to put the Overtaker kids in as 2.0, and somehow got a hold of 2.0. So rather than risk the Overtakers getting further control of 2.0, they backgraded the Keepers to 1.6 in the hopes that the Overtakers wouldn't be able to get control of the Keepers. So that was why there was kind of an uneven fight in the boat where the kids had full-on 2.0, and these kids are in their potentially deadly and getting hurt 1.6 versions. That was what happened. Thank you for reminding me more.
See, that makes more sense, because I was going to say, well, if they're not solid, why are they even jumping off a boat?
Yeah, that was why, because you could see looking at the cover picture there, you could tell they're 1.6. You see how it had that blue glow around them? It's established in the books that that blue glow is only on the earlier 1.0 versions. 2.0 doesn't have that glow anymore, so they look more like real people.
Which, there we go, there's that one. That was explained.
That mystery solved.
Yeah.
That mystery solved. But yeah, so this is where everything goes down and ends, and well, for now. And this is kind of where we found out the supposedly all the leaders of the Overtakers are buried in a cave in somewhere, and Maleficent was choked to death and murdered and shit, and Dillard Cole is dead, and that kind of traumatized Finn to all hell.
Maleficent is dead. They can finally forget her. Until the next time, when they introduced, in the next series books, when they introduce Angelina Jolie's version that they've made for the theme park.
No.
The kids will be like, oh, fuck off.
No.
I would also say with the DHI 2.0, okay, yeah, that takes away the Kingdom Keeper's weaknesses and stuff and allows them to do more stuff. Would that not also empower the Overtakers, since that's how they interact with our world as well? Would that not make them more solid, and therefore they can interact with our world more?
If the Overtakers were using their DHIs, yes. Because remember, the Overtakers have physical forms themselves. The characters are, to some extent or another, real. They can control whether they're seen or not. They're basically on that plane of existence, but they can control, like, the powerful ones like Evil Queen and Maleficent and Cruella are solid. As far as you can tell, they might as well be the people in the costumes. They're effectively real people. Whereas in the previous books, the Overtakers, like again Cruella and Evil Queen, actually did program themselves into a DHI server and make DHIs on themselves. They could attack the Keepers and get things done without risking their physical forms.
I have to ask, based on how this is done, is Maleficent actually dead? Because based on how they always do the imaginary stuff, and then they can choose to become solid and choose not to be, it stands to reason that they'd put something in there like, oh, right, the rock was about to hit her, she chose not to be solid.
No, I'll put it this: Maleficent does not appear again in the series so far. I'll put it that way.
Fair enough.
Now that said, Maleficent and her dragon are on the cover of this new book, despite her not being in the book. So I don't know what the deal is there.
Angelina Jolie.
I don't know. But anyway, so something weird is going on there. But anyway, yeah, I'm assuming that just. I'm reading some weird things. I think the problem is there's a couple of novellas that go along with the series that I have not read, ebook novellas, one of which is called The Syndrome, which is established to take place after this new book that came out, I think, or something to that general effect. And I think there's some relevant event in there regarding Maleficent, because I was looking on, like, there's a TV tropes page for, like, in the literature section for Kingdom Keepers and stuff, and there keeps being references to something regarding Maleficent being in hell and taking over and, like, dethroning Hades and taking over or something. And I'm like, I don't know where the fuck this came from, but apparently, I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's in that novella or it's something else that people just made up and put on the internet. I don't know. But I'm reading that places, so I don't know.
Fair enough.
So anyway, But we'll stay tuned for next week, folks, when we go to the final book of the series, which I will get you an image so you can check out the awesome.
Although, oh, sorry, I was going to say, well, how would she overpower Hades? He's a fucking god.
I know, I don't understand that either. Then again, as we noticed, as if you've seen Hercules, you know Hades is also kind of an idiot.
He's actually not that much of an idiot. He's actually really intelligent. He just surrounds himself by idiots with those little minions.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Yeah, but no, Hades is actually one of the more intelligent Disney villains because he's actually really self-aware.
Yeah, originally Hades was supposed to appear in the first book we talked about tonight, Shell Game, but he ended up not actually being in the book, despite supposed confirmation of his appearance. So, yeah. Anyway.
It's probably because they were on a boat and they were like, well, pirates is big right now. Let's make it a Pirate Caribbean person. It makes more sense money-wise.
Yeah, something like that.
But cover 7.
Yes, I am saving the image to the file now so I can put it up for you. Save that. Here. Open new files. There it is. Open. Boom.
Nice.
And open.
Nice. Is that not Maleficent on the cover?
No. Maleficent was on the cover of the first book.
Okay, I couldn't figure out who that chick was.
Yeah, no, Maleficent is on this one.
Yeah, but it's that looked like the same eye colours.
No, that's green skin with dark purple eyeshadow. That is not.
Okay, then who the fuck's that?
That is the evil queen.
Oh, okay.
You might notice
The
the
designs
crown
are really.
on her head.
To be fair, those designs are really similar.
A little bit, yeah.
And to be fair, I can't tell that's a crown when Kingdom Keepers is right in the middle. It looks like it could have been how Maleficent has her horns.
I don't know, but yeah, this is Kingdom Keepers, the Insider. You can see we have the evil queen there. You can see we have Disneyland burning in front of her there and crumbling to dust.
No, the least important Disney park. No.
Ouch.
And to be fair, the one in Florida is bigger and seems a lot better. Even the one in Paris has attractions that the one in LA doesn't have because it's got some of the ones from Florida. So, and even the one in Tokyo. So it's like the one in LA seems to be the worst Disneyland.
Well, the only reason that is the one in LA has the least amount of physical space because it was built to be a certain size and are limited by the amount of space. That was why Walt loved the concept of Walt Disney World. He was actually quoted as saying something when they were going to build this. He was quoted as saying something to the general effect of, "Unlike California, the one gift we have here is space. Enough space for all the dreams we have and will ever have."
Yep.
But yes, Kingdom Keepers: The Insider will be the final book covered next week. The new novel that just came out a few weeks ago, Kingdom Keepers: The Return, Book 1, Disneylands, will be reviewed at some point in the future. I'll probably wait till this full trilogy is out and review that as a set as well. So we will get to that later. But stay tuned for the final book. We get a Disneyland, shit fully hits the fan, and we put an end to this once and for all. And you can finally see a lot more awesome Disney hero characters for once. So how about that?
Yay.
Oh, also, you might like this fact. It's hinted in the book that Stitch is a double agent.
Why? He wasn't evil.
I argue he was genetically engineered to be a killing machine.
But the whole film with him was him realizing he's a lot more and him standing on his own and not being evil. He liked being good.
Right, which is why it's indicated that in his first appearance he seemed to be with the Overtakers, but in a later appearance when Finn actually is able to talk to him for a minute, Stitch kind of realizes that Stitch helps him and saves him from something that's attacking him at one point and kind of helps him, and they talk for a minute. So it's established that maybe either A, Stitch is just kind of whatever, like working both sides, or maybe Stitch is, like at one point was hanging out with the Overtakers, but was actually a good guy and was just told to hang out with them to like spy on them or something.
Okay.
So Stitch is definitely a good guy. It's just that established that either that or they just backtracked on Stitch, one or the other. It's not a whole. Also, there's a fun thing where he doesn't mention Lilo at all, and there's a scene later where in order to go out to do that meeting with King Triton, he's left a surfboard, which the guy that's there with some cast member with the surfboard says, Lilo told me to give you this. Like,
Nice.
okay. But anyway, so yes, we will cover The Insider next time. It should be noted The Insider is a unique book in that not only was it the name, but also a lot of passages in the novel, and also a few in this new one, via the Kingdom Keepers Insider website. Part of the reason why this book is named The Insider is that fans got to help write the book. They got to contribute small passages here and there, which were organized and, obviously edited for quality, and then, for grammatical quality, and then put into the book in appropriate places. That's pretty cool. So, yeah, thank you two for joining me. Again, I apologize for the shitty quality of these reviews. There will be better reviews for this down the line, I promise. I will do better.
Fair enough.
And until next time, I'm James Phoenix. We don't have any applause again, so we're just going to have to go out on... yes, there we go. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time. I'm James Phoenix. Peace.
All right.